I want to talk now about spirulina, and I might just stay kind of dense here. I don't know. Spirulina, it's the stuff that can turn your mouth green, just like my mouth is blue right now. It is known as one of those oft-championed superfoods that you typically overpay for, along with everything else, your grocery shopping cart full of organic avocados handpicked by, I don't know, Himalayan monkeys. And, it's right up there with some of those other things like green coffee extract and cocoa extract and Garcinia and garlic and ginger and all these things that are reported to be useful as supplements for weight loss. Now, here's the deal. They just published a paper that actually took 6,171 people who were overweight or obese. So we're talking about a pretty decent meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. And they looked at the effects of supplements on weight loss. So they took 111 randomized controlled trials, and they looked at 18 different supplements. They looked at flaxseed, cinnamon, capsaicin, saffron, resveratrol, green coffee extract, grapeseed extract, ginger, garlic, cocoa extract, black seed, curcumin, Garcinia, green tea, chitosan, psyllium, and spirulina. And for any of you who are interested in this idea of natural alternatives to things like Ozempic and some of these GLP-1 agonists, this is interesting because what they found was the highest certainty of evidence for weight loss was spirulina. They averaged about 3.9 pounds of weight loss from spirulina. Now, there were some others that had pretty decent certainty of evidence, including psyllium fiber, because honestly, you just poop out all your weight, right? Actually, I'm kidding. It's fiber-based and can keep you full, kind of like spirulina can. I'll explain that in a minute. Black seed, chitosan, and curcumin. Now, chitosan is an interesting one because that's not really a fiber. Chitosan is basically a sugar. It comes from the exoskeleton of shellfish, like crab and lobster and shrimp. Now, it is fibrous. It's not just like what you would traditionally think of as fiber, but it's actually a sugar, and it comes from the outer skeleton of fish. However, some of these other things like psyllium seed and black seed, you might consider these to be commonly known fiber sources. So spirulina is interesting because I thought, why the heck would spirulina assist with weight loss? We're talking about the equivalent of a heaping teaspoon or so per day that you could stir into food, smoothies, etc. Well, I'm going to link to a really interesting paper I found that summarizes all the different intriguing mechanisms of action of spirulina. For example, it's been shown to allow for better fecal excretion. That sounds gross, I know, but fecal excretion of cholesterol and bile, meaning it reduces absorption of fats in the small intestine. And so you poop more fats out when you're consuming spirulina, and it might also result in a lipid lowering effect. And that's related to what are called the phyocyanin components of spirulina. Now, these photopigments are also another reason I like to combine something like spirulina with red light therapy. It's also fantastic for that. It's got anti-inflammatory properties. So you get reactive oxygen species that are often associated with tissue inflammation and damage. And spirulina's blue-green pigments, these water-soluble photosynthetic pigments, have really good anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. And considering that inflammation and oxidation can be related to weight loss resistance, that's probably another reason that it's not just useful for general health, but for weight loss. And then there's weight loss. So the proposed mechanism of action in the way that spirulina would actually be so powerful for weight loss is a reduction in what is called macrophage infiltration into visceral fat. Okay, so it lowers inflammation related to visceral fat. It prevents hepatic fat accumulation. It reduces oxidative stress, like I was just talking about. And interestingly, it also allows for an improvement in insulin sensitivity and satiety, meaning a reduction in appetite. And they think the reduction in appetite could be due to an improvement in what's called leptin resistance in the arcuate nucleus region of your brain. So that means that spirulina can actually affect your brain to reduce your appetite and increase satiety. Now, spirulina may also increase digestive enzyme production. It affects what's called pancreatic lipase activity. So what that means is that actually technically it inhibits, doesn't increase digestive enzymes, it inhibits pancreatic lipase. Now what that does is that can reduce your postprandial triglyceride levels. So there's another lipid lowering effect that it has related to the pancreas. And then it also can prevent cholesterol accumulation because of what's called the gamma-linoleic acid components of spirulina. Now, gamma-linoleic acid is formed from an enzyme in your body called delta-6 desaturase. And that enzyme gets inhibited with things like mineral deficiencies, like low magnesium, for example, alcohol abuse, tobacco abuse, infection, aging. And when you have a GLA deficiency, that can cause arterial thickness and hypertension and what's called dyslipidemia, or poor lipid balance. Now, spirulina helps that by having gamma-linoleic acid, and then also it has vitamin B3 in it, also called niacin, and that's also been shown to help with lowering cholesterol. So when you look at spirulina, I mean, I got through this study and I've been dropping it in my smoothie. Now, I think it's ideal to use spirulina that's actually like a living cell-based spirulina. So the one in my freezer has got like 30 billion living cells in it, and it's fresh harvested. They freeze it, and then they send it to your house and they tell you to keep it in the freezer. The stuff I've been using is from this company called Royal Spirulina. I don't even know if I have a code for them or anything like that, but if I can find one, I will. I'll put it in the show notes for you over at bengreenfieldlife.com/466. But basically, the Royal Spirulina, it's a pretty good deal, even though spirulina is not inexpensive, considering all of the benefits that it has, and considering you can stir it into bone broth, smoothies, make juice out of it, whatever. The other interesting thing, and this is related to a conversation I had with Dr. James DiNicolantonio, is that it may also be a good insurance agent against the consumption of vegetable oil. Meaning if you go out for a burger or you have some canola oil and some salad dressing and you want to limit the damage from that, the oxidation from that, you can actually use spirulina as kind of like a sponge. Glycine also works similarly. It's like 5 grams of glycine, or 5 grams, which is about a heaping teaspoon or so of spirulina, can really help if you've been consuming vegetable oil. Not that you want to use that as an excuse to head out for your local French fry outlet, but it's good to know that your green mouth can protect you from the nasty French fry oils. So anyways, that is a perfect segue. And by the way, I'll link to the spirulina study in the show notes. But that is a perfect segue, honestly, into something I wanted to tell you about vegetable oil. Because I tweeted recently, the next time that one of your friends tells you there's no proof that seed oils are bad for you, you need to tell them about something called HNE. HNE. Okay, HNE is short for a pretty long mouthful of a phrase.